Ethan Marlowe was a man who had always believed his life was untouchable. He had worked tirelessly to build a business that flourished, a reputation that others respected, and a family he cherished above all else. To anyone who knew him, Ethan seemed like a man who had everything. A thriving career, a loving wife, and a spirited young daughter, Lily, who had just turned 4. It was on a chilly autumn evening in the small town of Winfield that the cracks in his perfect life began to show. Ethan was late coming home from a business meeting, one that he had tried to reschedule but had been persuaded to attend by his business partner, Max Holden. He'd rushed home to spend time with his family, not wanting to miss reading Lily her bedtime story. But when he arrived, the house was silent, eerily so. His wife was in tears, her hands trembling as she handed him a note she'd found on Lily's empty bed. The note was brief and cold, its words sinking into Ethan's mind like jagged shards. "Lily is gone. You will pay for what you've done." In an instant, Ethan's world shattered. He searched every corner of their home, called every friend, and retraced every step he and his family had taken in the days before. But Lily was gone. The authorities were brought in, the community rallied around the Marlowes, and days turned into weeks of desperate searching. But despite all efforts, Lily seemed to have disappeared without a trace. In the years that followed, Ethan's life fell apart. His once thriving business crumbled as he was consumed by the search for Lily. His marriage, burdened by the weight of grief and guilt, could not withstand the relentless strain and eventually ended. And through it all, Ethan was haunted by the question, who would do this? What kind of person would tear a child away from her family? The answer lingered at the edges of his mind, like a shadow he could never fully grasp. He went over every possible enemy, every rival he had ever encountered, but none seemed capable of something so monstrous. And though he couldn't prove it, a suspicion grew, one he could never shake. His old friend and business partner, Max Holden. Max had been close to the family. He was even Lily's godfather. But Ethan had seen glimpses of ambition in Max that went beyond the bounds of friendship. Their business partnership had ended abruptly due to a disagreement over a lucrative deal, one that Max had been willing to pursue despite its ethical risks. Ethan had refused, and their parting had been bitter. He tried to bury the idea that Max could be responsible, dismissing it as paranoia, but it gnawed at him in quiet moments, in sleepless nights. 20 years passed, and Ethan's hope of finding Lily slowly dwindled. He tried to rebuild his life, finding solace in small routines and the support of a few friends. He never stopped searching entirely, keeping a small office filled with files and records related to his daughter's disappearance. But he had come to accept that the trail had gone cold. Then one day, an unexpected message arrived. A young woman had contacted a private investigator, looking for information about her past, suspecting she might have been adopted under unusual circumstances. The investigator, aware of Ethan's ongoing search, saw the similarities in the woman's story and reached out to him, suggesting a meeting. Nervous and hopeful beyond words, Ethan agreed to meet the woman. They arranged to meet at a small cafe in the outskirts of Clayton, and as he waited, he tried to temper his expectations, afraid of another disappointment. But when she walked in, Ethan's heart nearly stopped. She had the same bright eyes, the same dimpled smile he remembered from so long ago. "Lily?" he whispered, barely daring to believe it. The young woman, hesitant and unsure, nodded slowly. I think so. My name is Emma, but I found documents that suggest I was adopted, and I've been searching for my real family." Ethan felt tears welling up as he took in her face, her voice, every detail he had dreamed of for years. "I'm your father," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I've been looking for you for so long." They spoke for hours, piecing together the story of her life. Emma, Lily, as he now called her, explained that she had grown up with another family, the Coles, who had told her little about her origins. They had always seemed distant, secretive, especially when she asked about her past. As she grew older, she began to feel as though something was missing, that her life with them didn't quite add up. She hadn't been mistreated, but she had always felt out of place. Ethan listened, his heart breaking at the thought of all the years she had spent questioning her identity. But as they spoke, a realization dawned on him. The Coles were no random couple. He remembered them vaguely. They had once been acquaintances of Max Holden. A slow, terrible certainty crept into Ethan's mind. This was no coincidence. Max had arranged this. He had stolen Lily and placed her with the Coles, ensuring she was hidden, but not entirely out of reach. It was a calculated, cruel act of revenge, intended to torment Ethan for a lifetime. Fueled by a fury he hadn't felt in years, Ethan sought out Max Holden. He tracked him to a luxurious estate on the other side of town, where Holden had rebuilt his fortune and reputation. Ethan confronted him, demanding answers. Max didn't deny it. In fact, he seemed almost proud of what he'd done. "You destroyed my life, Ethan," he said with a cold smile. "That deal would have set me up for life, but you threw it away because of your principles. I had to start over from scratch while you continued to thrive. I wanted you to feel the same loss, the same emptiness." Ethan stared at him, horrified by the depth of his hatred. "You took a child, a helpless, innocent child, for revenge. You destroyed her life just to hurt me?" Max shrugged, his expression unrepentant. "She had a life, a good one. It's not my fault if you can't accept that." Ethan left, knowing that any hope of remorse from Max was a fantasy. But he also knew that he couldn't let Max's actions control their lives any longer. He and Lily needed to rebuild, to heal from the damage that had been done. In the weeks that followed, Ethan and Lily worked to piece together their lives. They spent hours talking, sharing memories, and relearning each other's lives. Ethan showed her photographs from her early childhood, told her stories about her mother, and introduced her to the few friends who had supported him during his darkest times. Slowly, Lily began to feel a connection to her past. She took back her birth name, feeling a sense of belonging that had eluded her for years. The anger she felt toward Holden was deep, but she refused to let it define her. With Ethan's help, she began to move forward, finding purpose in reconnecting with her roots and reclaiming the life she had been denied. Ethan, too, found a sense of peace he had thought lost forever. For 20 years, he had lived with the weight of grief and guilt, but with Lily by his side, that burden began to lift. They could not recover the years they had lost, but they could create new memories together. One day, Lily asked Ethan if they could visit her mother's grave. It was a somber, yet healing moment as they stood together, honoring the memory of the woman who had loved them both so dearly. In that quiet moment, they felt a profound sense of unity, a bond that not even time or tragedy could break. Though Max remained unpunished in the eyes of the law, Ethan and Lily found their own form of justice. They lived their lives fully, refusing to let his cruelty define them. And in doing so, they reclaimed their story, transforming it from one of loss and bitterness into one of resilience, hope, and most importantly, love.